It's January 1st, 2044. Who the heck are all these guys? The only one that I had a hand in bringing to the team is Ed McKinley, who, probably played in 1953 rather than 2043. But he's here on the team. He was our 5th-round pick in 2032, the last draft pick. Still with the Athletics that I had a hand in drafting. The Athletics right now, 73 and 89. Not a great record, but we have had some success since I retired as the general manager. You can see here, 2024 is when we first inherited the team. Our first playoff appearance was in 2030. First 500 season in 28. And then a dip with the 64-win season, and then we ripped off 9 consecutive playoff berths. So 10 playoff berths in 11 seasons. Did not win a title, unfortunately. Won 100-win season in 2038. That was a season that I stopped and took a look. I went 5 years and then 5 years in the 10-year sim. And this is a team with a lot of our guys still around. This was kind of the last year, and a lot of these guys were traded or left in free agency. So Emerson, Clark, Galloway, Ayala, Venable, Sinclair. Wedegay was a draft pick that was in the high minors. Jeremy Johnson was still around. Andre Modugno, he was a decent player. And then on the pitching side, Chris Welch, who won a Cy Young. Excuse me, Chris Welch. Juan Eller Reed was a guy. Joe Little was still here. Chris Mullen was still here, but he kind of flamed out towards the end of his career. Bishop Letson was back. Dylan Walters. And Joey Estes also had one final season with us. This was our 100-win season, and we finished first in runs scored. Or actually, no, it's first in the division. So we won how many division titles? This one in 33, 38, 40. So 3 division titles in 20 years for the Sacramento Athletics. We can look at the history index. I forget. I want to see the playoff bracket from 38 and see how far we got, because so 34, we just really couldn't get it going. Lose here in the divisional series to the White Sox. 35, lose to the Angels, and you can see the champions as we go through. Lose to the Angels again. What year is this? 36, so 37. We make it to the championship series, lose in 7 to the Red Sox, who eventually lose to the Rockies in the 30-year anniversary of Rocktober. That's a fun World Series. The Rockies sweep for their first title as a franchise. But that would have been our second trip to the World Series. So only one trip to the World Series. This was our 100-win season. We lose in 5 games in the DS to the eventual World Series champion Cleveland Guardians, who after 90 years win their first title in 90 years in this sim. So that's pretty fun. Other than that, the history index, you can see the Guardians went on a rip here. The Dodgers were always consistently good. They win. And it wasn't like their main team that we see them having in real life. It was later when they kind of flushed their prospects out and got new guys. So 3 titles here, 4, 5, 6 in 20 years for the Dodgers, and 9 pennants. Kind of ridiculous. He was 6-3 in the World Series in 20 years. And then the Red Sox were a consistently good team. The Guardians, the Astros. Our one World Series appearance in 2033 that we lost is the only one. A guy I quickly want to, because I've been keeping tabs on him this whole time, Colt Keith, a Hall of Famer, almost inner circle, 731 home runs, 2679 hits. The only guy to reach 3,000 was Manny Machado with 3,100. Vlad Jr. got close, but that was about it. The best pitcher was Floyd Sarrazin, who pitched, but 7 MVPs for Colt Keith. Sarrazin was a number 1 overall pick of the Angels, spent almost all of his career there, and then won 2 World Series with the Guardians. Or maybe it was at 1. Yeah, he won 1 with the Angels, 1 with the Guardians. He was the best pitcher of the era. Over 200 innings, 2 Cy Youngs. Over 200 innings a number of seasons, I should say. Never 20 wins, and that's the thing about what we're going to have to see electing starters to the Hall of Fame, is that nobody gets to 20 wins, multiple times in their career, if at all. Nobody's going to get to 300 wins. And like a guy like Sarrazin, his career kind of cut short before the age of 35, just because all these players got wrecked. But he had a curveball, a change, and a cutter. He's still, pretty capable. And actually, he just retired. He's 35 now. He's from Montreal. It's an interesting player, but number 16 overall pick, not the number 1 overall pick. For us, speaking of the draft, now that we're kind of 30,000 feet away, Mathis, McKernan, and then Emerson, Range. Josh Range comes back after his 2 UCLs and has his best season with the Mets. That's fun. Wilson's still pitching in the independent leagues, Hakopian. So it was Besteman, Emerson, and Range in this draft class. So only 5 major leaguers in 3 draft classes, but 27. All of these guys reached the major leagues and were, relatively big contributors. Daniel Soriano actually ended up pitching a number of years as a 20th round draft pick in the major leagues, and then some other guys played in other leagues. I have it deleting players that did not reach the majors, but whatever. What else is there to look at? The budget is now at $168 million. When we were very good, winning 100 games, it was here at 190, close to 200. So this team finally got a good budget. I remember when I looked at it, Chris Welch had a multi-year, $30 million a year deal. We finally were able to pay players. This guy, Tetsuhiko Nakashima, we are retaining a big portion of his contract, and I have no idea why, because he's a pretty good player. Yeah, we're retaining quite a bit. But anyways, let's look at our short list. The only players, no players entered the batting leaders list from our team, but Connor Griffin got on some. He's here 10 on the slugging percentage leaderboard, but that's about it. Steals were a couple of them. I wanted to check doubles. Did Galloway ever break that record? No. He never really came close. Sinclair's up here on career doubles. And then Joe Little for winning percentage and Chris Welch for a lot of counting stats because he just was a very dominant pitcher. So let's look at those 2 guys. Welch here. Now with the Braves at age 33, he has an outside shot to make the Hall of Fame. 46 F4 in his age 33 season. Pitched the first 10 years of his career in Sacramento, goes to Cleveland for the final year of his deal, and now free agent acquisition by the Atlanta Braves. And he's got a long-term deal that'll take him into his late 30s. We traded him for Jorge Molina and Juan Flores. Flores is a good relief prospect, but not a stunning return for the best. And he's a real major leaguer. He's not a prospect. Not a great return. And we ate some of the money, and we gave him a relief pitcher for the best pitcher. For the best pitcher in modern athletics history, you kind of give him away. But he's still on the top of his game, and I think he's got a shot for the Hall of Fame. One Cy Young was 2035. He won Rookie of the year after we quit. So the peak of his career was down here. But, just pumping out consistently 3-5 seasons. ERA definitely took a dip league-wide because of 4.44 ERA's league average in 2040. That's Welch. Joe Little was the other homegrown guy. Pitcher. He flamed out in 2038. That was his final season. I was looking at his injury page. He had 3 injuries to this right shoulder within a year, which makes me think that it's not giving me a reason, but it's probably because of that right shoulder. So he finishes as a one-time All-Star in 35 and a 2032 Cy Young winner. Joe Little, our former 14th overall pick in 2029. Now we can go to the short list to make this a little more efficient. The prospects that I was looking at when we left, Mike Sharp did nothing. Delgado, Joel Paul didn't even debut. I had him at he was like a 17-year-old lefty when we were looking at him. Max Zuga, did he ever make the majors? No, he was promising. Bateman, Tim George never actually debuted, which was surprising to me. A few seasons in AAA and just never got up. Dan Coyne played a little bit for the Yankees. These are guys I never spent much time on. So Yoshi Sakamoto spent more time with us than I ever thought he would. Brought him in 2032. He stayed in the minors until 36 and just had different spurts at the major league level. Jorge Ramirez played a little bit. Won Main season in Minnesota, now at 34, playing for the Glacier Range Riders out in Kalispell, Montana. Josh Mallard pitched parts of 2 seasons in the big leagues. He was one of our top prospects for quite a while. Phil King batted a little bit for the Cardinals. Ben Hughes, our former first overall draft pick, barely made the major leagues, as we said. Disappointed in that. Juan Carrillo had a decent career in the majors. Jeff Bowden, Wedigay, 4-time Gold Glove winner, one of our better draft picks. He was a 7th-round pick in 2032. And the last few guys here, Mini Wheat with the Braves, or Mini Weather, not Frosted Mini Wheat. Started off in Pittsburgh after we traded him for a reliever who's actually pretty, decent. McKinley's still the only one in Sacramento. Agon Gorman was also sent to Pittsburgh and has been fine. Same with Juan Garzon. Josh Walling actually had a very good career with us. He was a 3rd-round pick in 2031. We had success developing high school pitchers towards the end and had a few very good seasons for us. Never an all-star, but a peak here of a mid-3s ERA and 200 innings. That's got a challenge for Cy Young votes, I would have to think. Yeah, 2nd in Cy Young voting and 3rd in 37. So 2nd in 36 and 3rd in 37. So very close for Walling. Jesus Del Cid was one of the better draft picks, and we sent him away to Philadelphia after a very promising rookie season in 2035. I'm disappointed to see that. He's a capable shortstop, but probably more of a 3rd baseman. And that was the best guy on the prospect list. So Del Cid, Walling, and I would say Wedigay with the 4 Gold Gloves, the 3 best guys on this prospect list that turned out, but the vast majority were bad. So about a third ended up having, impactful, I'd say, major league experience, maybe less than that, a quarter of these prospects, and then the rest filtered out. And these are guys, that were sitting at an 80 potential, and they ended up like this. So that just goes to show this engine, 3/4 of your guys just won't even make the major leagues, no matter how good they are. Mike McCall, we traded to the Red Sox, not a good career. Juan Marrero was part of the Chris Mullin deal, and was very bad in his major league action. Nelson Serpa never made the majors, but he was very good in wherever he was. In the British National Baseball League, he was an award-winning shortstop. Ben Allen actually did get up to the majors. He's the guy we traded for Bobby Hunter, but was never very good. Ben Bestman had some action after a cup of coffee with us. A late-round draft pick, Josh Dawnbaugh, never made the majors. And Bishop Letson had an extended career in which he came back in his second-to-last season to Sacramento, where he started his career. And then Ji-Hoon Kim was the other guy we traded for Chris Mullin. And he, couldn't even get past the KBO Rookie League. So a coup in that trade, actually giving the Marlins a negative value for one of our best pitchers. Here's all our award winners. Sean Galloway had an average career, I would say. His peak was a few years after we were done. And then he never, could reach that higher level, maybe in this season where he only played 102 games but had his best OPS plus. Still a postseason hero, though. Connor Griffin eventually was traded to Philadelphia in 2036, so he was not a part of that 2038 100-win season. And he kind of morphed from being a above-average hitter to an average hitter in the later stages of his career. Hull, a very good kind of guy. 3 Gold Gloves, 4 All-Stars, 2 Silver Sluggers. Probably a lot of jerseys hanging out in Sacramento of Connor Griffin. He was a fan favorite, I would have to imagine. Huascar Ynoa, 2 All-Star appearances total, and 1 with us, I believe. Or did he make it? Yeah, no, he made both of his seasons in Sacramento. He made the All-Star game. Brennan Bernardino was our first, whatever. Henry Bolte, 2-time All-Star, and what's interesting about him is that these last 2 seasons in Sacramento were the best seasons of his career at 24 and 25. His only 2 All-Star nods. For the rest of his career, he was basically a non-entity. The vast majority of his WAR production came in Sacramento. and then a little bit in Tampa in 14 games. And that's it for Bolte. He retired at age 32. And we traded him. That was the trade for Contreras, who led us to a playoff appearance. Cody Funderburk played for almost half the teams in Major League Baseball and was never very, very good. His best stretch was with us. Joe Little, we talked about. Jorge Marcheco was a one-time All-Star. We DFA'd him, and he actually became a negative value player. McFarland retired after 2037. He could never unlock that next level we all thought he had. 2034 was his best season, which was the season after we were done. 17 homers, 120 games, 114 OPS plus. He was an All-Star that year, and a Wild Card Series MVP. Actually, 33, he was the All-Star. Braden Montgomery traded back to Detroit, was never excelling with the bat, and finished his career as a league average hitter. His best season coming with us in Sacramento. Sean Newcomb, loved this guy. 2 All-Star appearances for us. Just battled every day and retired at 34. Jeremy Rodriguez could never recapture the magic of his rookie season. Tried his best here in 2036 with the Astros, but bounced around the league. And never had a consistent role, it seems. Never playing more games than he did in his rookie season. Dan Sant had an awful season in 2034. The year after we were gone, they still kept him around, and then they finally moved him to Milwaukee. And in Milwaukee, he actually produced well, but then inexplicably, it seems, retired in 2037, despite being productive with the Brewers. Who knows? Dalton Varsho was a one-time All-Star for us, and cooled off at the second half of that season. Never did much outside of Sacramento. Frank Alcacer is very sad. He had the injury just before the playoffs in the last season that we played, was out until late 2034, and then was fine, and then just was terrible the rest of his career. Goes to Boston, comes back to Sacramento, goes to Atlanta, and almost all of his production came in these first 2 seasons as a Rule 5 draft pick, and then his second year. And a shame, a career that probably had something going for it, derailed by injury. Trace Bright, another very similar story, Rule 5 draft pick, made an All-Star season in his first year. Alcacer did it in his second year, and then just got hurt and couldn't do anything for the rest of his career. Denzel Clark finished with the Astros and was really never as good as he was with us. For them, his first season was looking to be the best season of his career, but he got hurt and then was just an average center fielder. Very happy to have had Max Clark instead of him. Mitch Keller pitched for everybody, but was best with Pittsburgh. Comes back for a final 39 games in 2035 and retires. Nick Lodolo's best 2 seasons were with us. By WAR, we were the best team that he ever played for. Almost double the R WAR production of Philadelphia, the next closest. His 2 seasons with us were the best of his career by far, and he should have just stayed with us. He was so good, but I tried to re-sign him in free agency in 2033, but he went to the Mets for a 2-year deal, and those were the last 2 years of his career. But they were worth it, really. I don't know. I think he got $15 million a year for 2 years to be an average starter for these 2 teams. So, at least he wasn't negative. Ryan McMahon, we let go, and he made an All-Star team and won a Gold Glove with the Angels. That was a bad move on my part. Chris Mullin got hurt and never was able to recapture his form after 2033. He was okay, actually, in 2034. But looks like got hurt again and then was never good. A one-time All-Star in 32 for us. Garrett Clevenger had another few good seasons with us, but was most impactful with us here in 2025 and 2026. And that was our last All-Star. So we'll move on to former Athletics. Connor Langdon had a good career. We traded him towards the end. Tyler Soderstrom, whatever. He played a long time, though. Good for him. Brady Basso also played till he was 34, but his best seasons were with us. Reggie Crawford had a good year towards the end with Cincinnati. Chase Davis flamed out. 2 poor seasons with Toronto towards the end, and then a tryout really with the White Sox. Joey Estes came back for 1 good year with us, but in 2035 with Detroit, or was this No, 2033 he won reliever of the year. Then went to Sacramento after that and was terrible for us. Then went to Detroit, nearly won it again. And then when he came back to Sacramento, he was terrible again. So he played so many years with us and just was bad. Negative 2.2 R WAR in all of his time in Sacramento. But actually a complete flip on the FIP, a 2.4 F WAR. So just so unlucky in Sacramento, I guess. Nick Frasso carved out a good career until age 38. The majority of his career actually with other teams. Bobby Hunter had 2 good seasons with the Dodgers, I would say here in 33 and then in 35, and then kind of flamed out by age 33. Jace Young had a few more seasons left in him. Good year here with the Angels in 2033. Mason Miller, whatever. Joe Boyle, whatever. Welvis, nice career as a righty platoon bat, even though the results weren't great. Did win a World Series. Or actually, no, what is this? The British National Frickin' Baseball League? Yeah. MVP of that league. Dunyo had a good career with Boston after us. Nothing to write home about. Andy Eggers. Jesus Gurindo is one of our early great acquisitions. Had some decent years with the White Sox. And Pittsburgh, well, no, it was Pittsburgh. He got most of this production here. But his best seasons, of course, with us. Manuel Pena played a few more years in the bigs, a gap after we let him go, and then eventually playing with Cleveland. J.P. Sears, Austin Charles, Rookie of the Year in what league? British National Baseball League again. But yeah, he only played 2 more years in the majors. Hancock goes back to Seattle and finishes out his career after 2 great seasons in Colorado. Jacob Wilson, very good honkball hoof class player. MVP, 4-time champ, Rookie of the Year award. Never did much beyond his 2030, though, for a major league club. Pat Bresser had a resurgent season in 2033. After being hurt, never played the majors again. And then finally, our 2033 A's, all the players on the 40-man roster. Here's Grady Emerson. If he hadn't have started at age 25, he would probably be in Hall of Fame contention if he just developed a little bit quicker. He's kind of a very good glove because he's played a lot of shortstop since we stopped playing with him. And he's been a league average hitter, and that's good enough to be a very valuable player. We'll see what happens with... Well, we won't. This is it. Maybe he makes Hall of Fame, maybe he doesn't. TJ Venable. 10 years in Sacramento. The year after we left, he was brought up, had a poor showing in his rookie season, and then was a consistent player. Now with Toronto. Talked about Soriano. Alarid was just kind of a cheap pickup from the Cleveland Guardians for, I believe it was international bonus pool money. No, it was for Jet Williams, who actually did carve out a decent career, but not with the Guardians. But yeah, Ella Reed was a good lefty throughout his career, and he's still pitching. 36, 2-time All-Star. Good player. Abaladejo was always a good glove, never a good hitter. Cam Caminiti was terrible throughout his career. Connor Griffin we talked about. Jamie Maynard actually was a very good pitcher. Came back to the Yankees, where he started his career, and had the best 2 seasons of his career in the Bronx. And split between the Yankees and the Athletics, a little bit in Colorado at the end. Don't count that. But over 200 games pitched for both those franchises, and was a good player throughout his career. Edgar Cuero never did anything with us, but had a late career thing towards the end as a hired gun. Chris St. Clair played for us for a while, 10 years again, or close to it, like 8 or 9. Had a good peak. Made a few All-Star teams, won some Silver Sluggers, and then came back. But now he's a free agent. But most of his production, if not all, in Sacramento. Luis Arroyo had this cup of coffee with us, played in the playoffs, but then was traded to Colorado and is still there. Ayala, his best season was actually the year after we left in 34, 146 OPS plus, 27 homers. had a 100 RBI season in his final year in Sacramento, and then went to the Twins, where he gradually declined before retiring this season. Jaden Baptiste had the best season of his career in our final season and never was really good again, except for this year in San Francisco and a little bit in Houston. That's about it, though. Just a shame. He was so good. The BABIP wasn't unlucky. FIP wasn't bad. FIP was very good. Matt Brash stayed for an extra year in Sacramento, and then eventually moved around the league. Max Clark won a Gold Glove and a World Series title with Detroit in 28. Was a league average hitter, prolific base stealer, and a Gold Glove caliber center fielder. So he was a valuable player for us for a long time. Played a bunch more years than I thought he would for Sacramento after I left. Just a competent player. Chase Hampton, 1 or 2 years with us. Jeremy Johnson never took an everyday job and ran with it except for his last year here in 2038. He was a platoon guy. I don't know how they stuck around with him for that long with the results they were getting. George Kirby pitched that season with us, got hurt, never was good again. Daxton Levin was traded around the league. His best seasons actually was this age 27 year with the Diamondbacks and age 30 with the Nationals. Joe Little, McFarland, Moncayo, decent. Jeff Moody played 1 year with us and then bounced around. Morel we only had for a bit. And then Rodriguez. Saldana never actually played in the major leagues. He played all these years in AAA and then was an indie ball guy, which I'm surprised. We had him on our 40-man, but he never cracked a lineup in the bigs. Dan Sant, talked about him. Eric Salazzo, never actually played for Sacramento, despite being with the minor league clubs for a long time. Was a Rule 5 pick, returned to us, and then goes to Texas and is bad. Luis Tapia had his cup of coffee with us and actually spent almost all of his career with the White Sox and never was good. Was actually very bad. Darius Vines, a few more seasons after us, where he was still a productive pitcher. And this was a guy we initially gave up. We had him after the Braves traded him to us, and he put up 20 WAR without us. Jeff Wagner won a Wild Card Series MVP in 2036, but was never a regular player. 2035, his best season. Trey Combs, got rid of him after our last year and actually excelled as a starter with a few different clubs. Woo-Suk Go, 1 season with us, traded away. Zach LaValle, the year after we left, didn't get back up to the majors until 2036 for a cup of coffee, and that's it. That was his career. I was very surprised to see this. I thought he was a talented young hitter, but 4 seasons in AAA and 2 in indie ball. Never got back to the majors. Bryce Miller, his 1 year with us, was very good. Was never that good again. Chris Mullen, Dylan Walters, played a number of years for us. Did not get us that much value. So we lost the Bobby Hunter trade. But not badly. Cervantes, never a good hitter. Always a good defender, but out of the league by 32. And that's it. That's the 40-man roster. Let's look here at the decision history for the last little bit, and then that's it. We're done. So Welch, our best acquisition, 42.2 WAR. Clark, Emerson, Griffin, Galloway, Little, Walling, Sinclair, Ayala, Alarid, and Venable. Obviously, most of these losses were trades, and most of these wins were draft picks. But of the trades, Clark, Galloway, and Alarid outpace all of our 3 worst trades. So the worst on here was Alarid. He still got us more WAR than the Langdon trade, and both these guys were lefties, so, whatever. John Chilson was a guy that we actually gave up towards the end for, I think it was Bryce Miller. Yeah, we traded Chilson for Bryce Miller, and the Tigers got a number of seasons out of him. He produced 10 WAR, but we got to the World Series because we traded him, and that's fine. Barrera, Hancock, Duno, Hunter, Geloff, Martin, Mueller, and Spence. So Mueller and Spence and Martin and Geloff, not Martin, but Geloff, Mueller, and Spence were from the very beginning of this. Our worst trade was this, when we traded Langdon for Skeens, who got hurt immediately. And did he do anything? He pitched in the KBO towards the end. Was never fantastic, but in Colorado he had a good season. So that was our worst trade. Behind that, Chase Davis. Behind that, the Bryce Miller deal was bad. So those were two trades towards the end where I finally kind of let go and said, whatever, we'll trade prospects. And they actually were two of our worst trades cumulatively. But I would say this Bryce Miller trade's a win with the season we got from him and winning the AL. And the Skeens trade was a wash, I think, just because he got hurt. And then the Hancock trade and the Geloff trade. But the wins were this Max Clark deal. Ridiculous return on investment, only giving up Butler, but getting Clark. And then the second deal was the Galloway deal, winning 20 WAR, not even counting Saldana, who I thought was going to be better than Galloway, possibly. Jet Williams for Juan Alarid, a two-time All-Star for a guy who was going to be a free agent after the year. Didn't even play in the majors. He was in the minors. The Mullen deal ended up being very good until Mullen got hurt. And then finally the Tim McFarland deal for Mason Miller. So our two worst trades, the fourth and fifth best trades outpaced by the first and second worst trades, but I think we made out pretty well, and it's obvious that we set the team up for success in the future. I've said that, this is one of the worst long-term saves I've done. Only one 90-win season, only one World Series appearance, only 3 playoff appearances in 10 years, but I think that we were vindicated in what we learned throughout the series with the subsequent updates of Out of the Park 25, drafting better, and we built a farm system that, although very low-ranked, a very low-ranked one, consistently the low 20s, we were drafting the right way. We made 9 playoff appearances with a budget that is still towards the bottom of the league. And for a long time, we were 30 out of 30 for both these categories. So we turned it around. Right now, the farm system's 4th out of 30. But these guys, actually, Phil Lee's pretty good. Medina. Yeah. Flores was the guy they got back for Welch. Maybe he is a starter. Colt Blackburn. So a number of top 100 prospects. But like this guy, Mayorga, like he's just ranked the 49 prospect because he's ranked the 49 prospect. He's not going to make the majors, probably. He can't play defense. I have my gripes with the ranking system. It doesn't measure how top to bottom good your farm system is, but that's okay. So that's the series. This is the epilogue, I guess. That's how everybody turned out. That's how the league turned out. And maybe I'm back with another series, but probably not for this edition of Out of the Park, or at least until the winter or the fall. I'll be done for the summer. But thank you for watching. Bye-bye.